So welcome everybody to the January NBEAA meeting. My name is Sonia Carey, I'm the current president, and we're being hosted here at Sonoma Clean Power's Advanced Energy Center. And as I'd hoped, we have some new faces, which is really lovely. Thank you all for coming in. And then we also are online with several attendees. So Cecilia is recording for people who might want to check active links later or check what had been discussed in the meeting. So I will proceed with our presentation.
You might explain also what Sean just showed us on the screen. People want to see more people, how to do that.
Yeah, so we're doing something on our big screen here at Sonoma Clean Power's Advanced Energy Center, where we have kind of the presentation on the left and the gallery view on the right. And you might be just seeing the presentation right now, but you have gallery view options as a Zoom participant. And it's 2023, so I bet you know how to run Zoom by now. But yeah, feel free to kind of adjust as you go. We're trying out different presentations ourselves, and hopefully everyone's kind of got a good view here.
And there's also a little slider on the side of the presentation portion of the slide. And if you slide that off to the left, you'll see more and more people.
So I'm going to leave mine in this mode here, but I've got chat here, and Mike is helping me keep an eye on chat as well. So our agenda today, we take about 2 hours from 10 to noon usually. We've got introductions, chapter business, a little bit around events, and quite a bit of news today. And we also have a presentation from Kimberly from Sonoma Clean Power. She'll be joining by Zoom at 11-ish to start maybe around 11:15 and do half an hour, 45 minutes. And, if people are have a lot of questions for her, we can keep that in mind and shorten up the news and try to get her started as soon as she comes in. The EV charging program here at Sonoma Clean Power is something that she can speak to and help us get oriented to. Any questions or ideas for focus on news versus the presentation? Just
I think you're good.
Good. I think it'll work out. We don't have too much. Sean did a little intro for us, and I thought that we were going to do that at the beginning, so we'll clean this up in the future. But as I mentioned, we're being hosted here by the Advanced Energy Center. So introductions. My name is Sonia Carey. I get around in the Tesla Model 3 when I'm out of town. I'm hoping that I'm going to increasingly be able to rent an electric vehicle, but so far it's been kind of cost prohibitive. So I've been focusing on more driving vacations, but there are families to visit on the East Coast and things like that. So I thought this might be a little extra intro question. So we're going to go around the room first, and then we'll do the Zoom people and start with Mike.
All right, hi everyone, I'm Mike Newell. Are we going to have peanut gallery tonight? A little bit?
Sure.
I got a couple items maybe for the peanut gallery, but so I get around now on my 2011 Nissan Leaf, not very far. Did some research on that since we met last. Actually, I just recently scheduled a couple of trips I need to take, and I have checked that Avis recently sent out their terms and conditions, and they have an EV clause, and at least in Phoenix, they had EVs to rent. Turned out I'm not going to go on that trip, but yeah, I think we're seeing more and more EV rentals when you go out and need to get out of town. I think I'll send the rest for peanut gallery.
Okay.
Hi, my name's John Foreman from Petaluma. I'm on my third EV. Started with a 2017 Bolt, and then they had the battery issues. I got the 2020, now I got the 2023 or 2022 EUV. It's a pretty cool little car. Mileage is still tough, but I enjoy driving an EV.
Okay.
January Friday, smartphone, no EV, a hybrid. It's like 2004. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Like No, I'm not into cars really. I'm more in EV policy, interested in that. And I haven't gone around much lately because of all the storms and I have a bicycle that I try to use. I drive my friend Gary here. Get interested in bicycling, but not yet.
Want to get a battery on it.
Hi, I'm Brad. I live that way. I walked over here this morning, but I also have a 2004 Honda Civic Hybrid. Where do we talk? Like, am I supposed to face, is that the only camera
The
in the room?
speaker's
or-
actually this little thing in the middle
there's
of
the
the
microphone.
room.
Oh, okay, so the microphone, but are we supposed to face the camera or like each other? I've never been in a
The
meeting like
camera's
this
here
before.
too, and so we're getting picked up a bit. When you speak, it'll move over a little.
Okay,
And Brad, you're no different than the rest of us because having a hybrid meeting with multiple people in the room, you're trying to figure out where you're gonna talk.
oh, okay, I just didn't know if there was like a best practices.
There's
or-
no best
Okay.
practices. I think we're gonna find that out in about 2050.
Okay, and in about half an hour, I'm gonna go into that corner and just talk.
Yeah, no, I recently became a real boy, so.
Welcome Pinocchio.
There was only a rumor that you were tall. Shall we move over here?
Henry Tashinsky, Petaluma. It's been a while since I've been here, but
Hey,
you know, good to see everybody again.
it's been a while.
Currently with a 2018 Tesla Model 3. Had a Model S for a couple of years before that. So putting lots of miles on the 3 this past year. So lots of driving vacations and family visits. So.
I'm Jack, and I have a 2011 Nissan Leaf along with Mike over there, trying to figure out how to get more miles out of it. I'm up to about 69,000 now, and I'm down to 8 bars, and I can just barely make it over here and back to my home in Sebastopol.
How many miles do you have on it?
69,000.
And Mike, how many
Did
do
you
you
plug
have?
in at the parking lot today?
No, I can make it back home when I
You
try.
can make it back, okay.
I'm in front out here, and it starts to rain, and I don't want to be marching up to the parking lot.
Well, don't forget to feed your meter on the street though, because,
I did.
okay, great.
What, did you feed the meter last time? You parked out here last time, didn't you?
I just
I was
got
right
lucky.
next to Mike.
I just got lucky, but this time I parked in the parking lot.
I paid $35 for mine.
Sorry.
I saw meter around the back.
If you don't want to park in the parking lot, the place that I park is on Fifth. There's always parking spaces. Just go past the meters and then there's all free parking. Just a block
There is a
there.
little bit of.
I live in the JC neighborhood. You guys can always park at my house as well, and we can walk over together. That's an option.
Okay.
There you go. Jerry?
I'm Jerry Glazer, and I'm currently driving a 2018 Leaf, but I started, like, I can't say I started with the 2011. 2011 Leaf was my first production after I lost my first production vehicle, which was the 98 Honda EV Plus. And Ray's not online, I don't think, and Ray beats all of us because he was driving EVs in 1992. Mine, I got 70,000 miles on, and I went below 8 bars. That was the time to change
Move
cars,
on.
and I moved on to the 2018. And I'm looking for a new car, so as people have more and more experiences, I was sold on the idea of the EV6, but a lot of things have changed as a result of that with the IRA. So I'm having second thoughts on that and trying to see what the new models will look like. When I'm traveling, virtually never do I rent a car anymore. It's really infrequent because I find that public transit and most of the places I go to is so much better than what we have here. I'm now on the MTC Policy Advisory Board. And I mentioned that, so if you guys have input, I'd like to get the input. I'm on a task force that's now a permanent task force to find a way to integrate 27 separate, distinct, independent transit districts
They hate each other.
that hate each other so that they function as one. And thanks to Zano, we now know that the club has a seat on the Citizens Advisory Board panel for the Sonoma County Transit Authority. And Sonia asked me to fill that seat for now. I've been to several meetings.
It's transportation authority, right? They-
Yeah, Transportation
Yeah,
Authority.
you
What did I
said,
say?
you said transit.
Oh, Transportation Authority,
Right,
yes.
which means they talk about roads more than anything
Yeah,
else.
well, most of what they talked about is Measure M. I had no idea what Measure M was. And we're now within a year of terminating the expenditure of Measure M funds and going into Sonoma Go funds. And so I'll bring back reports from time to time from those meetings of what's happening in the county as far as transportation. But there I actually saw the 3 transportation authorities in this county, which was Santa Rosa Bus, Sonoma County Transit, and SMART. Oh, sorry, the
And
4th one,
Petaluma.
Petaluma Bus, that's right, the 4th. And the 4 of them gave a report recently as to what they were doing. And the 3 bus authorities all said that by the end of next year, 45% of all their buses will be electric. I haven't seen it happening that fast, and I'll be very surprised if they're able to do that, because you make a lot of infrastructure changes, as Kayla, having worked in the industry.
Terry is also our president emeritus, so I want.
Which I'm not going to be much longer. Go ahead. We'll
Yeah, I
cover that in
wanted
the
to
meeting.
make a,
What about,
point out our
what about the
officers.
San Francisco Bay Bridge District? They run buses here, are they?
Right, that's a.
They run buses up here too?
Golden Gate
One of-
Transit.
Oh, Golden Gate Transit, yeah, in fact, in my role so far, I've been the only, I shouldn't say the one who tries to go when we're allowed to go to the MTC boardroom for the meetings. I show up with 27 seats or 28 seats or whatever, and I'm sitting there by myself and everybody else is on Zoom, and I take transit to get there. It takes 3.5 hours. But I have to drive to get to the transit for it to be 3.5 hours. If I take it from home, I have to leave the day before for the 1:30 meeting the next day. So those are the kinds of things that I'm hoping that over my tenure there, I can contribute.
We're still in intros. so-
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, Bernie Dolan, and I've got a leaf and a 3, and my leaf doesn't have nearly a mile as you have, but I think I'm still got 9 bars or so.
Wow.
So it gets about 80 miles on charge. And,
It's not a 2011, is it?
pardon?
What year is it?
It's 15.
Oh, that's got a entirely
16.
different battery.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, okay. It's got the bigger batteries too.
It's got a different chemistry too.
Oh, does it? Oh, okay. Anyway, and I got the 3, and I got solar collectors, and I still need a battery, a big battery since
Running
we
off
can't
the
use
power
our
set.
cars
Yeah,
yet.
We'll be
Yeah.
able to soon, I hope.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
David?
David Harris, we have a 2020 lease that's, the lease is up, but we could extend for 6 months and continue to make the monthly payment only, but it stops reducing the residual they
Yeah.
get. And I've got a 2017 Bolt that I bought. And I thought, well, all this chatter on the internet about how, since the batteries aren't defined yet, the Treasury has not released a new regulations on the battery requirements that Chevrolet would be selling Bolts qualified for the 7,500. They don't know that yet. I mean, you talk to the sales managers, and so that isn't happening yet. Because I thought about trading your my 2017.
Okay, well, we're gonna move to the online folks and start with Russ Wigglesworth. Russ, can you get off mute, or do I need to unmute you?
I think I'm off. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Yeah, you can hear me? Okay. My name's Russ Wigglesworth. I live in Petaluma, and I have a 2015 Kia Soul EV. I haven't gotten to participate in these meetings before because I've always checked in late. today I was aware of it and I got on
Great.
in
Glad to
time.
have you. Glad to have you. John Parmerly?
Thanks. So I'm John Palmerly, live in Santa Rosa, have an 85 Toyota pickup that is converted to electric that I drive every day to work, and it's got the fancy Leaf, Nissan Leaf motor in it. So it's kind of its latest upgrade that comes from Thunderstruck Motors where I work. That's it.
We'll stay in the family, Ellen.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Ellen. I live in Santa Rosa. I purchased a used 2017 Bolt in 2019, and just last year I got the new batteries, so that's very exciting. And I've been very happy so far with the new upgrade in the range. I don't do a lot of traveling, but I'm really hoping to. My dad and I, John, are hoping to really take more long trips up to Oregon and Washington and maybe down south. So we're hoping to use our cars to really push kind of their range limit and see where we can go with that. But also I'm excited to hear about any rental options with EVs that I hope will come out in the next few years. So grateful to be here.
Yeah. Cecilia?
Hi, I'm Cecilia Sullivan, Vice President of NBEAA. And I would say before I got an EV, and particularly before the pandemic, when I get around would be via public transportation, or if that didn't exist, walking. There's some interesting experiences I've had in various different cities around the United States. But as for now, I basically drive my car places.
Thanks, Cecilia. Caleb?
I didn't join in person today, though I do have a new vehicle that could theoretically drive me all the way there. So I got rid of my BMW i3. It was a 2015. It was not really meeting my needs driving to Aliso Viejo and back daily. So I have a 2023 Volkswagen ID4. And it's been very nice. It's very comfortable and capable, and it has a 250 mile or so range, yet to be tested, but it's been an experience. I would just note that I was recently in Hawaii, and Avis in particular was the rental car company we went with, and while we were there, they were installing bays and bays and bays of chargers in preparation for putting out Polestars and Teslas, Model 3s. So that was very encouraging.
Yeah. So Bruce.
Hi, I'm up here in Friday Harbor, Washington now. I lived at Bodega Bay for 17 years. And my first get out of town car was a Tesla Model S 2014, I think, that barely made it delivered in 2014. And I believe Lowell Ansey is still driving that one around. It should have 90-some thousand miles on it. And for up here, I'm still going back and forth to Oregon, visit family and my Model 3. And I should mention, when I had the Model S, I made 10 trips up to the San Juan Islands with an orange cat. So that was pretty creative. And the first trip I made on the Tesla superchargers was a little unnerving, because it was like, are those charging stations really there? And there weren't that many of them. There were just enough to get, you know, if you did the string of chargers right, you get to Washington, and then you had to deal with the ferry system as well up here. So I've got a bunch of cars I'm trying to thin out. I just mentioned that Alan Soule's Roadster 101 is back on the road again. I'm not sure for how long, but it's up here in my garage. I have to thin out some cars. And my challenge for cross-country commuting now is getting a Ford Lightning pickup, which my brother, I paid for it. My brother and I are kind of doing time sharing, and it's down in Eugene, Oregon. And we're trying to work out the route for CCS charging with the Lightning pickup truck. He's had it for a couple of weeks now and is running it, making it jump through hoops and towing things with his trailer. And it's an electricity guzzler, but it's a pretty hunk of a truck, according to him. So if anybody's got suggestions for non-Tesla CCS charging, Ford is supposed to be building out a network, but not all of the Ford stations have the chargers yet.
How about Lawrence? You're back. Lawrence, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Lawrence Darwin down here in Palo Alto. Currently driving my girlfriend's 2019 Bolt that she bought off the end of the lease. She went month to month, and after about 4 or 5 months, went ahead and purchased it because the newer ones weren't available. And when they became available, the leasing options would have been very expensive, even though the price was supposed to be lower. I guess the interest rates had gone up. So she lost 3 or 4 months off the residual by not buying it immediately. But anyway, she was waiting for the next ones. I've got an electric boost bicycle, but I haven't been riding it much recently, given the weather. We just got back from a 1,000-mile trip to San Diego and back in the Bolt. And, I keep saying to people, if you want to do a lot of driving long distances, get yourself a Tesla until the CCS network gets built out, because we never knew if we were going to actually find a space or a working space when we got there. And so it meant that we would pull in at 30 or 40% instead of 15, and the charging's much slower at the higher stated charges. So we didn't travel as quickly as somebody in a gas car, that's for sure. I mean, we didn't really need to, but just a lot of people I talk to, I know people who've got Bolts who will rent a car or drive a gas car for long trips because they can't be bothered with looking for CCS chargers. And not knowing whether one's going to be available when they get there. Whereas with the Teslas, every time we pull up, there's 10 or 12 superchargers, and it's, even if they're all full, it's only 3 or 4 minutes usually until somebody's done and the next person can get in. So anyways, we're looking forward to the 500,000 chargers from the IRA. And then I'm a big proponent for bi-directional charging to avoid fossil fuels on the grid, and also to avoid grid upgrades in order to electrify our homes and buildings, and a big proponent of solar canopies and whatnot, so that you can put in daytime charging without having to upgrade the local grid or the building service panel and all that stuff.
Lawrence, you were the one who sent out the note on the program from PG&E. I knew about it, but I didn't know they were taking applications. So if anybody hears after they've applied from PG&E, it'd be great to send a note out to the club to those and discuss. I haven't heard anything back yet.
Rich Randolph.
Good morning. Thank you. I've been driving a 2015 Model S now. We've got just over 120,000 miles on it. And, we get around pretty much up and down the state. We live in Santa Rosa and have family in Southern California, and made many trips, usually on Interstate 5. And for the most part, only encountered a extended wait once there at the base of the Grapevine. Getting around locally is not really a problem at all. We've got a solar set up at the house, and we've even used the superchargers around town occasionally. Have to watch out on those. If the charging station is particularly busy, you could be subject to an idle fee, which can be steep. But the advantage of the pre-16 purchase is that you get free lifetime charging. So we're hanging on to it as long as we feel it pencils out. So looking into electric bicycles or smaller platform carts is an option that I'm curious about. The bikes are awesome. So I'm just enjoying hearing a little bit about the bidirectional charging. We're curious about that, particularly with the power outages. Likely not. So that's interesting. And the public transportation improvement, because from traveling in other countries, we realize that we are kind of still in the dark ages around here. So thanks for the forum, the intro.
And last but not least, we have Andy Ferguson.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andy Ferguson, live in Petaluma. I'm on my 5th plug-in car, starting with a Leaf in 2012. Now I get around in a Model 3. And we also have our old Volt, and so we never need to buy gas. And when I take long trips, I take the Tesla, and there's no problems getting charges generally, although in some cities they're kind of limited. So thanks.
Tor, I forgot. Tor is last but not least.
Hey, let's see, I'm driving a 2020 Bolt EV, and then, but mostly around town on my townie bike.
It, so our interest took quite a while. I noticed that Russ has his hand up. Do we have a quick question so we can move on to the business of the day? Or
Do I have my hand up? I don't see my hand up.
oh, sorry, Russ. It's not your hand. It's the cursor.
Oh, it's a cursor? I saw the hand up too, and I go, I guess that's a hand up.
It's not yellow.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Maybe we can make the screens bigger now.
Yeah, sure.
If you don't, if you're up and you're up into it. So
actually, it's as big as we ever had it when we were in the garage.
There you go.
So
life keeps getting better and better. We're bigger and bigger screens. So I just wanted to remind any newcomers that the NBEAA is actually a chapter of the Electric Vehicle Association, and the Electric Vehicle Association is a nationwide organization that supports various local chapters. And the mission of the EVA is to educate and advocate for the rapid adoption of electric vehicles, which is really consistent with, the NBEAA chapter's goals. We have a chapter website at nbeaa.org, and that's how you access the Zoom each month, et cetera. And we also keep it up to date with information and news. The way we communicate is through a Google group. So we have a Google group site and send out updates for the second Saturday of every month. And hopefully we'll get into a nice cadence where we will continually be invited back to Sonoma Clean Power Advanced Energy Center, and we'll be here on site. I know it was pretty stormy locally, but I'm just really happy that we have both great online attendance and also in-person attendance today.
we more than 50% increased our in-person attendance. So,
There you go. So people like hybrid, maybe.
So I have a question about that. So you say we have a Google group, but it's really an email exchange, right? You
That's
don't
right.
have to
It's
go
not
there
really- You don't have to attend.
and there's
the
nothing else
group
there,
site.
not like an archive or a document.
It's a discussion group in which you receive emails by having joined the group.
Yeah, so maybe it's, I don't know, misleading to say it's a group that we have to go to the website.
You just have to join it. You were right
Yeah,
about that.
Yeah, it's an email group, as far as you're concerned. We set nothing else up for NDAA to discuss. The rationale was this: Alan Soleil, as the longtime president, kept trying to stop being president, and the only way he could do it was to move out of the area. Alan had an ethic that said, hey, I don't want to bother everybody all month long, and I don't want other people sending out messages to everybody. We have over 130 people in the NBEAA club group. Alan, want to make sure that you got important notices. If we need to make a decision as a group, that would happen too. So a limited number of people are allowed to post an email to that group. And so you'll see 2, 3 a month, and that would be it. But then people wanted to be able to have a discussion. So we created another group called Discuss. So those who didn't care about being interrupted would sign up for Discuss. And if somebody has an event that they just saw people might be interested in, or they have a question, that's where we use Discuss. And it's an email group as far as you can tell.
And so in addition to those 2 groups, we have a few other groups. And to Zeno's point, you have to actually join these to receive the emails and also be allowed to post to those. So when it comes to some of the others, they're purpose-built. So the web group handles web, the presentation group handles preparing the presentation. That's NBEAA team. And then we have an officers group and a press group, which is not really active now, but if anyone wants to volunteer and get a press group going, that would be great.
Yeah, that was all part of us trying to break down the work that Alan was doing all of into various groups. One question you did ask, Zeno, I'm not answering correctly. Is there a permanent archive of the discussions? The answer is because of the nature of Google Groups, yes, there is. And so if you did go to the NBEAA Discuss group, you'll find all the discussions that the group has had so far. And you'll find all the threads of people saying, oh, I have this idea, and then their response to it and back and forth.
So can I join any of these groups by sending subscribe?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you can do that for any one of these groups, the same way you would for any other Google group, and the managers of those groups will set you up to be joined. Discuss is set up, I believe, so that if you want to sign up for Discuss, there's no approval required. You say, I want to sign up for Discuss, and you're set up. If you want to join Team, you need approval. If you want to join Club, there's approval. And the reason for it on Club is we didn't want to get spam users. And so we wanted to get legitimate people who said, like Don did, hey, I got an EV. I think it's a good idea if I join the club.
Yeah, but you don't need to go to the website of the group.
No,
in
you
order
can do it straight
to drive in the group.
Yeah.
And if anyone wants some help after the meeting, we can talk about how you can check out all your groups and sites. So in addition to the groups, we also have our website, nbeaa.org, and that includes a link to our YouTube channel. And each of these presentations is presented on our YouTube channel, so you can look at previous months and check out what the subject matter was for each of those. And we also create a PDF of the slide deck because the PDF has active links, and you're able to kind of click through into any of the news or any of the other active links that we posted in the slide deck. One of the business items that we wanted to discuss today, or just to notify people about, is that Cecilia's been working on improving the YouTube channel presence. And Cecilia, did you want to speak to this at all? I noticed we're live with the logo that you created.
Yeah, so I created a couple of options for the logo, and I'd asked the team about color options, just to see, get a response about what that was or what made most sense to do. So currently we have the black background logo up, but I also created one that had more of a blue background that actually sort of matches the EVA's color scheme a little bit, just to kind of tie in their branding a little bit. So Jerry added this to get, I guess, feedback from some folks if anyone has any thoughts about the logos or the profile picture.
This might also be another opportunity to kind of mention that Cecilia's been working on, trying to pay attention to some of our social media presence as well as web presence. And if anyone has any interest in getting more involved, we'd love participation. So we could take that offline if anyone has an interest.
Cecilia, the only comment I have on it that I didn't think of until I just looked at it here is that if we use this on any place, we'll also have to have EVA someplace as well because of the way the charter works. And since EVA changed its name from Electric Auto Association, to Electric Vehicle Association, and we didn't,
I think we can handle that in a description.
I have to make
Yeah.
sure that every place this is used,
Mhm.
that we have EVA someplace on that page as well.
Yeah, since that page has a description option, I think you can state it.
Right, it's a little too small for profile pictures.
We've got 3 chat votes for the blue one, so,
Yeah, I'll look for the blue.
all right, we'll get Jack.
And this, Cecilia, would be the logo for the NBEAA on the YouTube channel?
This will be for the YouTube channel, yes. And if we have other social media presences that require profile pictures, we could use it there as well.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to do Twitter, just volunteer. Use the logo. Thank you. And
So-
keep going.
Yeah, so we talked about doing a Facebook group. So I created a Facebook group. It's a group, it's not a page. So it is a place where folks can have discussion. I'm trying to share like reminders about meetings there as well. So you can get those notifications in more places than just your email. The goal of this was hopefully to have this place on Facebook so that people searching for local, information about EVs, that they would potentially come across this group and join us. Oh, and if you're on Facebook, feel free to join. There is also a link from the website.
So a certain amount of activity on it would be lovely, and the idea of kind of casting a wider net and having people be aware, of our meetings and our organization on Facebook would be really great.
So why is this a group and not a page? I mean, a
Why
page
is it a
is
group
more
and not a
public
page?
facing. A group you have to join. So a group kind of a reference page, the Google discussion group already. A page is more outward, right? It's towards the public. So I'm just curious.
Well, this is a public group, but I chose to make it since I didn't want the focus to be just on what we're pushing out. I also wanted it to be able to be a place where folks can write their own content, and it'll be, if Facebook cooperates, it'll share that with other group members, so that it's not just us pushing to them to the public, but it is something that you can find publicly. But we could also potentially set up a page if that makes sense.
I haven't been thinking about it a lot, but that makes sense as you describe it. A page is a one-way method of presenting material, and a group is a more participatory method. So it sounds like ultimately there could be both. Okay. Great. So each month we kind of look forward to the next month and talk about any topics that we might find interesting. We might have a couple different options for February. Cecilia and I were going to volunteer to provide a VinFast presentation in February. It may not take the full amount of time. And we also have some EV materials and related to the Inflation Reduction Act, and we have home retrofit materials related to the Inflation Reduction Act, right?
And we probably also have a lot of news articles that we didn't process this month. One of the things
I
that,
left a few that I was confused about.
well, a lot of I was confused about too, so
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah.
And also, working on a presentation, Andy got us started on all this years ago. I'm working on a presentation on electrification that I might want to give as well. It doesn't have to be next month, maybe months in the future.
Okay. I think there's some flexibility. So if anyone has a sense of urgency around, I'd like to know something more about a certain area better, just leave it in the chat, because we could kind of structure things a little differently. I know there's a lot of questions about the Inflation Reduction Act that have been coming up.
And we've had some really good outside speakers. The pandemic, I want to say, was beneficial for us, but it opened things up for us. We've had speakers because of the pandemic from Oregon, from London, from different places in California that could never have made it to the garage and met with us. So keep your eyes open to other places and other people that you might suggest that we contact or that you contact to see if they'd be willing to give us a talk. Even one of the talks we found out about tires that we're not supposed to tell anybody about yet. And so we couldn't even include it in the video, but we got to have the presentation on it. So it's been an interesting exercise, but it means that members have to go out and reach out and find speakers to speak to the club. And there's enough people who would be interested in doing that.
As it stands right now, we're just going through the formality of requesting for the space on a month-to-month basis. And so you might hear us formally say, we're not sure yet, but I do think that we are getting easy approvals each month to meet here. So please think about this as a kind of an ongoing process where we're going to be meeting in this space. And I will see, I'll go through the approval process with Sean and get the space for.
And that works fine. You guys aren't offsite, aren't here. It's a nice big screen and great sound. And so the CEO of Sonoma Clean Power, if it's a really good sports event, will probably bump us.
Possibly. I think he's also quite fond of our meeting here, and the participation today is a great testament that having the space is kind of helpful. Also, you can plug in the employee lot. And so if anyone needs a little more detail, just reach out to me. Jack?
So I've used the facility itself and selecting heat pump water heaters and a heat pump for my live studio, an induction stove, and maybe if we make our presence out there where we're doing the stuff that they're trying to sell to the public, that will help us too.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so the bicycle coalition used to meet here, but it was told they couldn't do it anymore.
Okay.
And
So
I think the reason was that we were not very public oriented.
okay.
So I think that's an important thing to emphasize, that this is a meeting where it's not just members that are invited, but also anybody who's interested in EV. That's essential, I think, for continuing using this space.
Thanks for mentioning that, because I'll talk to them about, what that qualification encompasses, because I think in 2023, they had some new ideas about where they want to focus their employee resources. And hopefully we're still part of that.
I had heard that the bike coalition stopped meeting here because they were doing it, what was it, on Mondays, like between 5:30 and 8, and so they had to have somebody here, like an employee.
Yeah,
after
Sean did mention
business
that.
hours.
I don't know, I'm on the board, and I heard both these things, and it was kind of cost money to do this. But I think even today, the door was locked.
Well, they open at 9:30. And you and I got here just a few.
No, Saturdays is 10.
Oh, open at 10.
Yeah.
Okay,
It was
that's
still
right.
locked
They
at
get here
10:05.
at 9:30. That's what it is.
But yeah, I think you're right, that was part of the point, but it was also that they're interested in public meetings, new people coming in to hear about election.
Cecilia, I just want to check on one thing. If somebody clicks on the link on our webpage for today's meeting, it doesn't care if you're a member. It'll connect you to the club meeting anyway, right?
That's correct.
So it's open to the public.
I did want to mention, and maybe this is something I should mention right away, that Sonoma County's community level changed from low to medium on COVID-19. I'm assuming because we have a hybrid meeting that we can all determine ourselves that we're healthy when we come in and got good filtration here, et cetera. But, we all have to make some good choices going forward. Unfortunately, there is a little bit more COVID going around and other things. So our chapter goals update, I've been kind of focusing in on this each month, that we had some chapter goals that were pretty modest. I think when we started the year, we were in the midst of knowing that we needed to be online. We're still very interested in prepping for 2023 events, and kind of have talked informally about Earth Day and Apple Blossom Parades. We're now in that kind of timeline where it might make sense to look at, how to participate, and what to do around those. So I would volunteer at this point to kind of look into the dates that are coming up for Earth Day and Apple Blossom Parade and see what we need to do there. We also are in our season of prepping for 2023 officer changes. Each year we've been following the Master Gardener process of having a one-year term for each of our officers. And we've been rotating in from vice president to president, and then from president to president emeritus. And I guess the president emeritus gets to just kind of cycle back in or not.
I think it's a great experience for people to have.
There you are.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
Alan felt the same way.
Yeah. So I'd like to suggest that because we're working back from an April transition in officers, I'd like to suggest that today is our introduction of the officer changes. And next month, we can have nominations and discussion about who might want to participate in a more formal way. And in March, we could do some voting. With this said, we might even want to vote in February so that we can organize ourselves around an April transition. That's an option as well. Do people have a sense of the timing here? Process and timing only at this point?
I
A little bit of
tend-
this and that.
Yeah, I tend to think that, well, when you and I are probably the first ones to do a real transition.
Yeah, we met and talked about some of the
Right.
details.
Yeah, when Alan and I did it, it was, well, I don't know how you do it. So you contact the club, contact the EAA and figure it out. So I read most of the incorporation or whatever they are, the rules that we have to have and those things. And probably through my entire tenure as president, I wasn't completely recorded with the EAA, even though I contacted every person at the EAA, because they're not terribly organized either, or weren't at the time. Anyway, maybe
They're
they're
slightly
better
more
now.
organized and they're maturing as well. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think a month, I think if we did the vote in March,
Mhm.
transition into April shouldn't be an issue. I'm just gonna tell you something. You're probably still doing the presentation, putting the presentation together for April for the new March president and working in collaboration as you and I did.
Yeah, I think, it ends up being kind of an informal process.
So I find it very short. 1 year is very short to me.
To be president?
Yeah, to have a turnover every year is like almost like Congress, and it's so huge.
So the problem.
I like it.
Having it over.
I think behind that suggestion would be that, I would continue and I'm not interested. And I think that the processes kind of work pretty well because you have to be a member of the team. And so you're not going anywhere,
You're not leaving.
And so your commitment is multiple year. It's just that your role changes.
It really is a 3-year, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a 3-year cycle.
Yeah. And if we did it on a 2-year cycle, those of us who, I moved up here in 2016 and probably came to the first meeting sometime in that period. And in that first meeting of mine, Alan said, okay, I want you to take over as president. That was 2016. And so I became president in 2020. Is that right? 2021. Okay. So it took 5 years from the time that Alan said, I don't want to be president anymore, until somebody stood up and said, okay, I guess I have to be president. Now, if you say it's going to take, you have a 2-year term, we'll have even less people volunteering to be president. So it's disruptive, but practical speaking, each one of us should be willing to put in 1 year of a little more intensity than we have in other years. And I have to tell you, having done this for the 1 year, there were a number of things, I'm selling this now, a number of things that you get out of this. Number one is I learned a shitload. I started putting the presentations together way before I became president and started learning things just because I was forced to read so much more than I had before and regurgitate it into short frame. Now, Sonia took that over when I stopped being president. And quite frankly, I didn't know that she was going to do it. And I was delighted because it takes a considerable amount of time to do this.
I thought Jerry deserved a little bit of a break.
Thank you. Well, the second thing I wanted to point out is you actually get some notoriety from this and you get some mileage from it. And you put it on your LinkedIn and it's amazing the contacts you start getting on various things. And you walk into someplace and you can say, well, I was or I am president of the North Bay Electric Auto Association. There's 130 members to the club and you have a voice during that period of time. So there's things that you get out of it, and I think Cecilia's gonna have fun next year as she takes over the voice.
Yeah, so Cecilia as vice president would be transitioning to president, and I as president would be transitioning to president emeritus, given the pattern that we established last year. And so I think that means that we're open in regard to the vice president position, which would be the position that would lead into the presidency, and then also the treasurer position, which is could be a bigger position than it was this past year. We actually didn't spend money last year, but it could be that we could talk about the money we have and how we might allocate it. But it's a pretty small position other than that.
And it's not on a rotation. I mean, you don't have
The treasurer
vice
position
treasurer.
is different, and we didn't really pay a lot of attention to how it should move.
Right. And to stay as part of the EBA, we're obligated to have officers. In fact, I believe the number is we have to have at least 2 officers. And so we have 3.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that this was following the Master Gardener pattern, and I was a member of Rotary where they had a first and second vice president, so you had 2 people in 2 people in line there, and we basically had that opportunity this last year. We had two vice presidents. We decided we only needed 1, but I would raise that question again. If you had 2 people in rank, then if you lost 1.
Well, abundance is always great. So if more than one person is interested and someone like particularly wants to make a case for being second vice president and lining themselves up, abundance is lovely. I think we had the opposite problem last time.
Well, okay, in that vein or spirit, I guess I would like to throw my name in the hat for second president emeritus. And I can even do it for a 2-year term, as Zeno was saying. So I could definitely back you up as you move out of the presidency.
Okay.
But are you
Do
signing
you
up to
want
be
to
vice
be a vice
president?
president?
No. I just want to go jump past all that.
No, you don't get to do that. Now, the sequence works this way. You become vice president, you're obligated to be president for a year, and then you get to be president emeritus.
Yeah, no skipping.
Okay, I
Unless
can't
you
like
wanna
go
be
straight to
treasurer.
disability retirement.
Yeah, straight to disability retirement. You don't get to have that for 2 years.
Okay, scratch that idea.
So I don't know if I answered all the questions online, but if anyone wants to know how much effort this is, or how flexible things are, I think.
You don't look tired at all. No?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't look tired. I was very busy during periods of time during this year, and I kind of, like many aspects of my life, I right-sized the project, right? So I would have liked to put more energy and effort into finding outside speakers and refining presentations more than I did, but you can always make it the size that you have time for as well. Yeah. And Cecilia might continue to be a little bit more of a remote online president at times. And so we've talked about, just having the flexibility of, doing co-facilitating or whatever it might take to run a good meeting. And so,
One of the concerns I have for the next year is this, is that there was a team of 4 of us that were going to take care of the web and improving the web. And in reality, the team of 4 became a team of 1, and she's done a brilliant job. And we've been relying on her to continue to do that, and then she'll be taking on additional workload. So I think we need to address that.
that's a really good point. So, there's a certain set of skills, and we don't want all of the burden to be falling on Cecilia in the same year. So certainly, if anyone has some other ways they can kind of be supportive, web and presentation.
Yeah, I mean, there's things, enough of us are technical. We're still, I don't know, you haven't moved us from our DNS server to a new one, have you yet, Cecilia?
I tried. Something didn't work out. I need to try again.
Okay, or we can get some help by doing that, because part of what we'd like to do is rationalize some things. Today, we sent emails out to such and such and such and such, googlegroups.com. If we get the DNS server switched over, we'll put in mail forwarding and things like that to simplify this. So you can send to the NBEAA or discuss at NBEAA.org, and team at NBEAA.org, and club at NBEAA.org. A little bit more rational addressing. And the DNS server that we use today is impossible to modify.
Okay.
We just see us run into.
I just noticed that we have about 10 minutes for news,
Okay.
but this was kind of an important subject. So ask any questions that you have in chat, and we'll continue to talk about it going forward. Vincent offers. I just wanted to mention that Jerry and Zano are going to do an Electrify Everything open house on February 2nd. This was postponed from last month due to the torrential rains.
2 weeks ago.
And yeah, a couple of weeks ago. So February 2nd, the information is also on our website. So news. I think I mostly uploaded the things that you had prepped, Jerry, except for this first one.
Okay, then I'm not going to talk to this one.
Okay. All right. So I did a little research and learned that 3 weeks ago, the IRS released a fact sheet on the IRA household incentives, so Inflation Reduction Act household incentives. And so the fact sheet here is at irs.gov. And generally, this is just a super quick, high level intro, but people can kind of dig a little further, and we might do a more detailed presentation soon. But, generally you do have $1,200 credit that you can use each year, plus another $2,000 for heating equipment. I'm sorry, that was a typo, not 200, but another 2,000 for certain heating equipment. So as a total, you might have 3,200 in credit in any given year. And it can't exceed 30% of the total costs of the projects. And then this fact sheet lists the qualifying projects. So there's lots of different home retrofit that you can do, heat pumps, biomass stoves, etc. So that's just kind of like, it's out there. There's IRS guidance on it. And this is for the 2023 tax year.
And
yeah.
Sonoma Clean Power also has some incentives that you can add on to these.
Right, there are other incentives as well, but this is just the IRS is trying to get a handle on what the Inflation Reduction Act encompasses and how they're going to manage it. And I thought they were going to be very specific, organized programs, but instead it just kind of looks like figure it out and address it on your tax return is kind of the answer there.
It's not only for private citizens, again, from the MTC, when I sit in the meetings, they go, well, we're trying to figure these out.
Figure it out.
There's a lot of opportunity here.
Yeah.
We're not sure what it is yet.
Yeah. So we might need to pick and choose a little bit on the news, but feel free, Jerry. to
Yeah,
keep your side.
I have to explain something. I don't select the articles, but I do, when we get within 2 weeks, look at the articles people have sent, and any of you can send in articles. It'd really be nice if you said, oh, I saw this article was interesting because, bullet, 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 bullet. Some of you send in a link, and then I read through it, and I try to guess from that by reading it. This one was sent in on extracting lithium, and I pulled out the key items. Basically, I'm not going to read through this, but one of the things that I found in other literature is that lithium back until 2010 was not used for a lot of stuff. In fact, the most common use for lithium in 2010 was for grease. Okay, now it's used 95% for batteries. And so the cost of lithium, the value of lithium in 2010 was pretty low because you're going to dispose of it in grease. Today, it's probably 10 times more expensive than it was then. When it was at such a low cost value, there was only one way to get it. You had to mine for it because that was the cheapest way to do it. There's 6 or 7 different ways to get lithium. Lithium is in the ocean. Lithium's every place. It's the 12th most common element on the planet. So people are coming up with different ways to do this. This is one guy who started multiple companies now, trying to find ways to harvest lithium. Zeno sent this one in, and I think you sent this one in.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. But this was the University of Michigan. They've done a small scale demonstration. The problem with hydrogen molecules, getting them as green, is that it often takes a shitload more energy, almost 10-fold times as much energy to harvest the hydrogen than you get out of the hydrogen when you consume it. Unless you take it from natural gas, in which case you get a fairly good cycle. Well, that's not very useful for us. So everybody's been looking for ways to get hydrogen to fuel things like long-range trucks, aircraft, and the places where it'll be used. I personally don't think it belongs in cars because I think the whole model of going to fueling stations all the time is kind of silly after driving an EV for 20 years. It's like you go someplace to get the ice for your refrigerator. I mean, people used to go to the center, pick up the ice, put it in your refrigerator so you'd have cold stuff at home. Okay, now we plug it in now. Anyway, this one was interesting. They concentrate solar, they bring the temperature up really high, and then over a semiconductor structure, somehow it vibrates and it breaks the molecules apart as they run water over the semiconductor. They've only done this in a small scale. It was kind of scary when they do it. They run it about 170 degrees, which they thought was very hot, but I'm going, oh, heck, that's not even boiling water.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a video too that you can get on the second link.
Milk trucks.
This one's great. When in the previous administration, the mail people, Postal Service, said they needed new trucks. They basically got a contract for the least cost trucks, which were all fossil fuel trucks. And everybody gave them a really hard time about that, saying, you're not thinking right. Well, their point was, and it was missed in all the press, I missed it too, I don't have any more money. And that's all I can afford. If you gave me more money, I could afford it. Now, I'm old enough to know about 4-cent stamps. I just looked recently at what a stamp costs. Okay, they're trying to get it so that they can afford the trucks. Well, the IRA has now made it possible for them to afford the trucks. They converted the contract now, and they're going to spend $10 billion on new EV trucks. And that's for the first 66,000 trucks. Someplace here, I have the number of trucks that they actually still have. They'll end up buying 40,000 gas-powered trucks because that's what they have enough money for. They have to keep replacing trucks. They have 231,000 trucks. Okay, that's a large fleet. The same company that's doing these will do 45,000 EV military fleets. The military has a lot more money than everybody else. And the Navy in particular has been doing a bang-up job of converting almost every vehicle that they can afford to convert to be an EV. Even field vehicles are finding are better as EVs because if you run out of fuel out in the field, you can set up solar panels, refuel the vehicle and bring it back instead of having guys haul fuel across the battlefield to get to the vehicles. So this is a military advantage. Anyway, this is interesting stuff, and I'll let you read the rest of this, but the point was, the other one was, the average mail truck gets 8.6 miles per gallon.
So that's a good switch.
That's a good
We talked
switch.
about a switch.
Yeah, and they have very predictable routes. They know exactly how far they're gonna go. They don't have to go out to a fire. So, you know, it's very, very, even better known than a lot of the bus routes. Take it from the guys who make money on it, UPS, FedEx, even DHL and Amazon, they're all converting their fleets. Mike, you mentioned about renting an EV. We saw in a previous session a couple of months ago, Hertz had signed up to purchase 150,000 EVs to be renting. So everybody's converting. Next. Oh, I thought this came from McKinsey. This shows us how much we screwed ourselves up. It's just a graph that says, if we had acted early, this is the impact that we would have seen. This is what the disruption to our lives and how fast we would have to change things had we acted 20 years ago. We're acting now. If we wait longer, this is how fast we have to act, and this is how much we have to do, how fast we convert fleets, how fast we have to convert to electric, how fast we convert our power plants. And this is why it's become an emergency.
Yeah, it's a steep curve. Updated CARB plan.
This was great too. CARB actually does a great job. And they're continuously, I've attended a number of their sessions. They do keep looking through, they do keep calculation, they do keep changing their standards. Now, once set of presentations I saw, I said this, here's the CARB standards that we have to convert EVs at this rate. But then we found out that, by the way, EVs are converting faster than the rate that you established that we have to convert at. They keep changing this, and now they've actually tried to push the curve a bit more. Cutting oil use by 94% by 2045. 30 times as many electric vehicles in 20 years. We're probably going to have that pretty easily at the rate that we're going. Plan for 1.2 million charge stations by 2030.
So in Sonoma County, there's what, 12 or 13,000 EVs?
Did I put that on here?
No, I was just remembering.
No, I have a tendency when I'm reading the articles, those are the kinds of questions I ask myself, and I go look for another article that says what we have. I think I have up here what.
It's like about 16%.
Yeah, this says right here, in 2022, we had 564,000 electric vehicles. That seems too small.
In California, I mean, there's what, 28 or 29 million registered.
Well, that is California. That is just California.
Yeah. I thought California was in the, like 6% at this point of total fleet.
I don't know, because we did 27%, last year was 27% of new car sales.
New car sales, yeah.
Yeah, and the conversion on cars, the average life of an automobile in the United States is 12 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's 6% yet. I have to go look that one up. That'd be good.
I doubt it's any higher than that.
Yeah, no, yeah. But if you look at the number of vehicles we have, it turns out that we have more vehicles than we have citizens in California. Yeah.
Along with guns.
And along with guns, exactly.
I don't think so.
Huh?
I don't think so. I mean, the last numbers that I looked at, they were for the end of, I think, 2021, so it's a little bit old. From the California Energy Commission there was like 29 million registered light duty vehicles in California. I thought there was like 38 or 39 million people here.
We have about 40 million people. You're right, 38, 39 million. When you say light duty,
yeah,
a lot of the pickup trucks, and that's one of the largest things that keeps selling. Okay, they don't fit in that category. Right? And so, yeah, we have more vehicles per person than my next door neighbor has 3 vehicles and 2 drivers. You have to have a pickup truck.
Only 3?
Yeah, well, I had to for a while too.
You know, twice that ratio.
Planning for 1.2 million
So are you,
charge
can I
stations
ask
seems
you a
very
question?
small.
So are you saying that the goal to cut oil by 95% is completely covered by the target for EV?
No,
How do they intend to get to that goal?
and you're probably also cutting in other places as well where oil is used. And you go in electric.
So what percentage of that goal is covered by the EV goal?
I don't know. Why don't you do some research and give us
Well,
a slide on
Probably the
it?
majority
You
of-
like research.
It's a good question.
Write it down, Gary.
Anyway, they came up with the cost by 2035 would be $18 billion and by 2045 it was $27 billion. These numbers for me, I have another presentation that I have a video on that if anyone wants to see it, I won't be bored by it on a talk on a Bill Gates book where I'm talking about scale. 18 billion is a very large number. But compared to what we spend today, if you build a new fabrication plant for semiconductors, it costs over $10 billion to build one plant. Okay, so we're talking about numbers that change our lives that are fairly small and the kind of thing that we can afford to invest in. Here in the
Military budget's over 800.
yeah, I know. Here in the county, Measure M raised over $20 billion. So, you know,
How much do we spend a year in California on gas? Right? It's probably way over that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So, you know, there is a cost shifting that's happening.
yeah. By the way, the plan does include carbon capture and sequestration measures as offsets to spewing carbon. So that is the one place where environmentalists didn't like this. Anyway, their plan also says they estimate that 5,000 lives will be saved as a result of the new requirements. That is the change in the old requirements to the new.
So are you saying cut oil use is done by capturing the carbon of the oil use?
I don't know. You can, I'd rather look at the details. I don't think, no, that, I don't think that's the case. When you punch us to the next, sorry, the next one.
All right,
John has his hand up.
Oh, who has his hand up? Oh, John.
John.
Yeah, I wondered, the billions of dollars in cost, can you give some examples of what that money goes to? I'm not really sure what that covers.
Well, let's go on to the next slide. We have the next slide right here.
Yeah, I think it's right.
Yeah, so part of this has to do with energy efficient homes, installation of heat pumps, and a lot of changing how developers work. And hopefully here at the climate center, at the energy center, they're working on that. One of the problems that most people have is finding a contractor who, when you say I need a hot water heater, the first thing they say is, oh, let's put a heat pump in. That's the last thing most of them say.
Yeah.
Instead of the first thing.
They don't even know how to install
They
it.
don't know how to install it. Okay, it took me 3 years to get a heat pump installed to replace my furnace. And I knew I wanted it the first thing. Updates to support electric cars and appliances, financial incentives to homeowners and businesses. I'm reading, I'm sorry about that. And grants and loans are being offered. There's a lot of places, John, that they're applying it across the board.
Right. The problem with that is it's not about transportation. That was what I was wondering about.
Yeah, it's not all going to be transportation. There's a great deal as far as what does show up in the vehicles, but they're tackling multiple places. I think if you listen to the CARB talks, there's a series of CARB discussions. They're actually workshops, and they were doing them on Zoom. And they were on transportation. What regulations do we have in transportation in order to achieve the goals we want to in the transportation sector? And that they keep changing, making the changes on. They expect, and a lot of this I found a little bit lower than I expected, but California economy will grow by $3.2 trillion. By the way, the difference between a trillion and a billion is 1,000. And we don't recognize that, but if I gave you some examples, some point of stacking silver dollars and you get billions versus trillions, it's the difference between going from Los Angeles to Dallas, Fort Worth, and going around the moon 2.5 times. That's the difference between billions and trillions. So get the scale difference here of what the economy will change as we start moving and we go to electrification. It's a major boost to the economy of California. So
Wait, those numbers of 30-some billion, et cetera, is like 1% of the annual economy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's doable.
yeah. So anyway, electricity will increase by 68% by 2045. I have another slide, I think, coming up. No, I didn't. I sent that in an email. We'll do it next month. And there's 20 gigawatts of offshore. We have 6 offshore windmills today in the United States. 6 nationwide.
You mean fields?
No,
Because-
fields, because I've seen more than 6.
Huh?
I've seen more than 6. on a cruise
Offshore,
ship.
but
Offshore.
Jerry said offshore.
Yeah,
You've seen more
field,
than?
Field,
Field.
not just individual windmill.
I saw individual windmills when I looked it up. There might be an older article.
I've seen.
But I flew into Europe last fall. It's like, wait, they're starting like 100 miles before you get to the coast. You start seeing windmills out in the middle of the ocean. I'm going, how the hell are they getting electricity back in? So
Jim, can
that'll
we-
change it.
can
I'll get
we-
there. I'll get this one and you can flip. Right?
Okay, because we have Kim here.
I know, I saw it. Oops, John jumped in there just a second. And solar's gonna increase by 4x. Solar turns out to be the easiest one for us to increase. It's the hardest one for us to control. And I looked something else up. This came out of Stanford, and it was that wind is the major, solar is the major problem because solar changes so quickly compared to wind. So when the wind dies off, it kind of slows down the power. The solar occurs because we put solar on top of all our houses, and then a cloud comes over, and the entire area suddenly either increases or decreases in power. And so those are major changes in power that demand never showed before. And so the utilities are not in place, and CalISO is not in place to make that kind of a change up so fast. And this is the kind of thing that they're being challenged with.
Isn't batteries the answer to that?
Batteries will be part of the answer to that, but I don't know, they don't know what all the other answers are. Batteries are part of it. And actually, the most recent presentation at Stanford, the other answer will be hydro, lots of small hydro that's offered hydro. There will be storage to deal with this, but they have to respond a lot faster. They have to respond within 4 seconds. And these changes occur over a 10-minute period, and a 4-second response time is pretty difficult for them for the numbers that they're talking about. I don't know if I put it on this slide. No, anyway, I thought it was really interesting stuff. And the other thing, oh, here, John, sorry, you're asking one of the ones. Oh, no, that's not what it is. That's right. 15% of the reduction they're looking for in CCS. I don't know how they're going to get that. It's pretty hard to find the carbon in the air.
Well, I know we have more news, but we're going to
Yeah,
tell
jump
our
ahead, jump
news
ahead.
segment.
I will likely
have
be
Kim
brief.
speak to.
You don't have to be brief.
Oh, I'm
Give us
so-
lots of detail.
Lots of detail. So thanks so much, you guys, for inviting me. My name is Kimberly Beltran. I'm with Sonoma Clean Power. And I'm the technical programs manager. And some of what you were talking about, we are working really hard to address. EV chargers being part of that picture. So I could have put together some slides around grid savvy rewards, but it is in an iterative period right now. So I didn't want to put together slides that then feel like the final and full story. So
Kimberly, when it comes someplace where the owl can see you better?
sure.
Because you're a tiny little person, they have no idea how good you look.
Oh, how good I look.
You can use my computer and look at the.
Oh, why don't I just move up here? Is that okay? I was gonna remote in and then I was like,
yeah.
Then you end up with me big face because I didn't like have any slides together, so. So what I wanted to talk about, and it was a great segue, is what we're doing and what Grid Savvy Rewards is trying to do to help with peak demand. We all have heard probably analogies of a bucket of water. It's okay to have a full bucket of water is when the bucket suddenly overflows all at one moment. And EV chargers can both be, I'm kind of gonna focus on EV chargers. Would you guys like me to give you the whole Grid Savvy Rewards program and what we're trying to do? And then I could fit in EV chargers. Does that sound right?
That's great.
Okay, great. So Grid Savvy Rewards is a voluntary program. Sonoma Clean Power back in 2016 started with our free EV charger program, which was very popular for obvious reasons. As we were trying to support early adopters, right? We know that not the earliest, but as we were trying to broaden electrical vehicle and transportation electrification broadly, it was a great idea and still is a great idea. So level 2 charger, getting them into as many homes and businesses as possible is a big motivator. And so Grid Savvy Rewards was developed looking at smart devices and still does. So we have smart thermostats, heat pump water heaters, we were talking about EV chargers, and battery offerings are still part of this program that was launched. We have to date delivered under 4,500, very close to 4,500 EV chargers have been provided at no cost with some contingencies. You have to be a Sonoma Clean Power customer. You have to have a meter and a smart meter so that we can look at usage, and you have to activate it within our service territory. So those are some of the requirements.
4,500 chargers over how long a period of time?
Over 5 years. So let me think, it was probably closer to 6 years. We have about, so those are the free chargers that made it into our community as a free resource to our customers. Over the years, we have had up to 1,200 of those EV chargers participating in Grid Savvy Rewards, which I'm going to explain right now. So Grid Savvy Rewards is a program. There are 2 tracks. An alert-based track where I can send a notice to your cellular phone or to your email address that says, hey, we see a risk of a peak demand period this evening. We watch some trends. We have a planning analytics team that does some predictive. Also, we align with Flex alerts for those notifications. They also drive often when we are controlling smart devices. The notice requests, hey, can you curb your usage? Pull it earlier or after this peak demand window. And the goal of the program is to just pull down that peak. We're not saying, hey, use less throughout the course of the day, but we're saying here is a critical period. And we know what that period is generally when solar drops off and everybody comes home and we get the evening ramp is what we call it. So the duck curve, which we all understand is driving a lot of the NEM3 decisions, is that in the middle of the day, solar PV just doesn't have the value that it once had. And NEM3, popular or unpopular, is trying to work on looking at some equity issues that may have been present in earlier iterations of NEM. We see solar value as a real driver for that. And what our hope is that as we work to adjust this evening ramp and move people out of that peak demand period, hopefully pulling it before that 4 o'clock when solar drops off, all of a sudden, and our hope is that solar during that time of the day gains value, right? So some of the things we're working on, workplace EV charging, it could be a great solution. If people charge during the day, you see the value of solar, in particular, if we are going to increase, as predicted, the adoption of EVs in our community based on targets, state and broader targets. So about 1,000 to 1,200 Grid Savvy Rewards participants. They were not required in earlier iterations of the free EV charger program to participate in Grid Savvy Rewards, but it was an option that was available to them. In future iterations, very likely launching early this year, we are changing the offering so that every Sonoma Clean Power customer who's meeting those criteria as Sonoma Clean Power customer who activates their EV charger in our service territory has access to a point of sale 50% discount. And then those who want to participate in Grid Savvy Rewards and enroll their EV charger with us being able to dispatch, either reduce use or discontinue use, depending on severity and some settings that they'll be able to opt in or opt up or opt out of an event. They'll get a $250 back end incentive. So it won't quite be 100% free the way it has been. It's an important change. It's happening early 2023. We had thought it might be even sooner, like January 1, and now it's looking close, mid-February to early March.
That's a drop from 100% to 50%.
Well, it drops to 50% to folks who just want the EV charger and don't want to enroll it in Grid Savvy Rewards. Because when we were initially offering free chargers, we were driving people to electrifying transportation. Now there are very clear external drivers. We don't have that responsibility. Folks are doing it for good reasons that are external to us. We still think it's valuable. It is extremely valuable, but in terms of what is really critical to us and what we're taking very particular attention to is getting folks to understand when they're using electricity has a great impact on carbon being introduced into our energy generation.
And the big difference was Grid Savvy's intent was to have some active control over the charging of the vehicles. My understanding is then the first, not testing of it, but basically the survey of it was, hey, what would happen were we to now tell vehicles to stop charging? And the answer was not a terribly lot because most people weren't plugged in.
Exactly. And we have recognized that too as one of the driving. What we anticipate, and this is kind of spoiler alert, right, is that we're going to be looking at telematics quite a bit because we're feeling that there are a couple of issues with us controlling, say we cut off all of the EV chargers from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock, and then sun's down, right? So you guys get the picture. At 9 o'clock, everybody's chargers come back online at once. It is a problem. It's a funny peak. We get it at midnight. We see it in our trends. Folks that are on an EV rate and everybody launches their charging. With telematics, we are very, very hopeful that we will be able to see automobiles respond to triggers that are related to higher rates, to time of use. You plug in your car every time you park it, and the telematics is driving how much charge you want, when it is most appropriate to charge, with kind of a more sophisticated methodology. Because right now we're thinking about the Grid Savvy Rewards connected EV chargers, and how are we going to stagger that ramp back on? Because we don't, it's problematic. So
I have a question.
Sure, please.
As far as the schedule that Sonoma Clean Power has for the energy portion of the bill that we get, and we had a presentation last month where it's the epiphany of, we get the power, the energy bill. Yeah, Sonoma Clean Power is not that large a portion of it, but
it's a very small piece.
It's a small piece of it. Does Sonoma Clean Power have any control over the tariff schedule of its power? Or does it have to align with the tariffs that are approved for PG&E?
No, so that is a question that is not my expertise. So I'm going to be really careful here to not answer. I do know that one of the goals of Sonoma Clean Power is to provide a buffer so that we don't have these rapid swings in cost, right? So as long as Sonoma Clean Power can use some prediction and forecasting on what our reserves are, we'll have the ability to soften the blow of huge increases. Everyone is feeling the pain right now. I'm feeling the pain right now, but there are people in our community that are really, really being impacted.
We have a huge amount of compassion. So February 1, everybody's rates are going up. We'll be 5% below PG&E. You know, if you look and just, it'll be 5% less.
The question I was asking though, isn't what the rate itself was, it was the timing of the rate, so.
Oh, the timing of the rate. That's
Right, because if Sonoma Clean Power said, okay, our rates actually will stay at the higher level from midnight until 6 o'clock in the morning. 'cause
Oh, I see, like during the
Right, so
tariff
You
structure.
can use the tariff structure that you have to say there is a differential, and the differential now pushes you to the daytime. In a different forum, talking with Jeff, Jeff pushed more and more saying, don't charge your cars at night. We don't charge our cars here. That's the reason for putting the charge
We
stations.
want it
at
in the
your-
day. We want it in the middle of the day. And part of that is what, so I don't have the answer about how our tariffs are developed in terms of when we're charging one rate or the other and how, you know, beholden we are to the CPUC in terms of that. That's just not my area of expertise. But I will say that Jeff is spot on. We are right now developing pilot programs, trying to encourage workplace charging. It is a great perk at a time where people are struggling to keep people, to find people and then keep people. So it is a great perk. And like Jeff mentioned, I charge, I don't charge at home. I don't have a charger at home. I think having a charger at home is great. I live in a 1930s house, which I don't, it's gonna come and I will ultimately have one for when I need it, but I don't charge. I mean, charging in the daytime is really the optimal time.
There was a study just published by Stanford recently, and it talked about with the rate at which we're ramping EVs, and at the rate that we're ramping renewables, that we'll run out of power before 2030 because of the scheduling of when the energy is available, and we need a tremendous amount of storage because of that differential. And that study also went back and came back and said, the major recommendation from the study was to change the tariffs to incentivize every EV owner to charge during the day.
During the day. And oh, go ahead.
Ultimately, I'd like to be able to say, I'm a buyer to charge my car at 12 cents a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
Right, and you can set 15 and you might be in a rush and you'll pay whatever price is market, right? And I plug in all the time, and whenever it's cheap or, you know, whenever it fits my budget, I charge.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I don't worry about scheduling.
Which is,
right.
I'm so hopeful on the telematics and managing charging in that way. I can see in the very near future that is absolutely a reality and is sort of already being done to some extent. We're always in talks with every innovation. So we have a couple of LeapGrid and some other OptiWatt folks who are really looking at this and really looking at ways to do what you're describing. So it's an interesting frontier. And I also think that vehicle to grid, while I mean, we're driving around in an amazing, remarkable storage, you know, tool. So it's
Especially
like,
when you multiply the number of cars you have
I know.
associated.
It like gives me a little like, it's almost exciting just thinking of where we could go to, because that would really help us deal with what you just described, the 2030, all of a sudden there's some considerations about providing energy. We're doing everything we can here as well, so.
Yeah, Kimberly, so following off of that, you said there were 4,500 approximately EV chargers that have rolled out of Sonoma Clean Power over the last 5 to 6 years. 1,000 to 1,200 of those are grid savvy rewards participants. Do you know what the breakdown is of those numbers in terms of business charging versus residential charging?
So that is all residential charging. Yes, it's all residential charging as far as I know. I can check that. I could be wrong. So I came on and have been managing grid savvy rewards through the iterated program. So the older program was being basically sunset. We still have participants, but we haven't been dispatching. We are working under a new integration with the different chargers. And so we are, in addition to reestablishing dispatch capability with ChargePoint and JuiceBox, which they've been our chargers, we are adding EvoCharge, Wallbox, and I'm drawing a blank on the 5th, but we're trying to make there be more available options as well.
Do you know if you'll have the Wallbox vehicle to grid chargers available too? We were warned not to ask you these questions.
It's okay. I'm very good at saying I don't know, or that sounds awesome. You know, we want to do everything we can. And so I would say that right now, really nothing's off the table in terms of, it's just how big can we dream? We are using the best tools we have available today. And the second a new and better tool comes out, we are just, you know, looking at that and looking at how to integrate it and make it accessible for our customers, all of our customers. And that is a big, big issue too, is just the equity piece. So making sure that even the folks who are really feeling the cost of energy right now are also being met where they're at, trying to help answer some of their questions too. We have the bike electric program that's been really popular. And so we're always trying to think of new ways. So good ideas are always welcome. So.
Well, we're all very excited about the idea of street charging, you know. It just makes a lot of sense for equity.
We have Brant Arthur, who's really the expert. He should be sitting, he and I should be like this, sitting, because Grid Savvy Rewards is part of the picture, but he is everything, doing a nonprofit pilot to get EV chargers in parking lots, you know, employee parking. He's wonderful, done a ton of work with the city buses and getting some fleet equipped vehicles and working on you know, remote EV charging incentives for places like our underserved Mendocino County, where we want to be there. They don't have enough chargers. And so he's been doing a ton of good work on that front. I wish I knew all of it so I could tell you what a hero he is. He's done a ton of great work, but he was unavailable today. So he recently did a big tour in Europe, and you would be amazed what they're doing. They have pull EV charging right on the curb, so you can pull up it. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, and it works.
Went to Europe to take a picture for us and brought the picture back.
Brought back the pictures.
Brand's got pictures too. I'm like, you must have been driving your wife nuts. You were like,
Montreal has it too.
yeah.
The big difference that I found, and I don't know how we make the change here at this point. They did something in Europe that we don't do, is the charge stations don't include the cable. Now, one of the most expensive portions of the charge station is the cable.
The cable, and it's the most likely to be damaged by misuse.
So why
or
not make that
stolen.
part of the driver's responsibility? And that's what they do there. So when you come up to a pole, there's a very slim station right there. It's very inexpensive. to
It's
put in
elegant
place.
looking. It
Yep.
does not, it's not obtrusive. You don't have.
There's no 20-foot cable hanging from it.
And you don't have any like bad behavior, like the cable laying all over
Yeah.
and not coiled up the way we know that someone, I can't speak to who, but would do if they had access.
I have no idea how we get converted to have that kind of a setup, because it's
I
a much
know.
more rational setup.
It's surprising that it's not, I mean, generally we look to each other, right? We don't all have to do all the smart work. Like we can share information, all of us we're so globalized, but you're right that they are taking advantage of some innovations that we just haven't yet.
Well, the treasury could add to the IRA bill requirements that the cars have to be sold with the cable.
It's a great idea.
In California, there's a requirement in order for the auto, this is how they do it in California, it's kind of ass backwards. In order for the car companies to get credit for having zero emission vehicles, they have to have certain qualifications. And the newest qualifications that just came out with a car, starting I think this year, is that you have to come with a charge cable. So you have to be able to plug into an outlet. Now, it's not a charge station, you just have to plug into an outlet, okay? And new requirements say, and it must support 220, which didn't occur before. You'd see the Leaf and a few others might have a 220 connector also, not yours, but in the later models. But now CARB requires it, and otherwise you don't get the credit for having a zero emission vehicle.
And they could add to that, that you have to have the cable that would connect to, but they need a standard.
Taking the chargers, the cables out. They
don't
come
even-
with the car now.
I know, I have two friends who just went to EV, which I'm so happy, two separate, and both of them said, oh, I didn't even get a charger with the car.
Volkswagen's doing that too.
Yeah,
Is that-
that's what it was. One got an IV,
Yeah,
one
that's
got an
either,
IV
that
before.
now said either they're have covered enough for the ZEV requirements or have a small enough number of internal combustion engines that they can ignore that regulation. But
Well, when did-
Or maybe it's still.
it's part of the standard.
When did California make that change though? Is that effective?
That was,
23?
I don't know, I think it was passed because it was the proposed structure that reviewed
So that might
about
be
6 months
So
ago.
we have an unfair advantage over the.
Oh, yeah.
John's got his hand up.
If John knows how to yell.
I just wanted to add that the one of the interesting features about the European charge cables is that it's the level 2 charge system that by nature needs that kind of thing, because the cable then determines the amount of current the car can accept. And so it's a little different, and there's a reason for it in Europe. I think it wasn't because they decided to do that for lampposts. I think it's because it was that way, and it happened to work well for that. And it may be that if we do it here, we'd have to have something similar. I don't know.
Yeah, but there is a discussion, John, isn't there, between the car and the station saying, this is what I can take, this is what I can give you. And if you had the cable from the car, it would come from the car that said, and I can only take 20 amps.
Would be a limiter.
That's correct. It's just that the cable in Europe and in the type 2, the cable determines that. It's just a different situation. And so if
They have more pins. No, they have the same number of pins. How do they do it? Just jump or something?
it's actually, there's a resistor in the cable that tells it tells everything what the cable, the gauge of the wire and the cable can handle. So it'd be cool if we could adopt that. However, I doubt it. So something like you're saying, where it's just a cable that's the level, the type 1, then it would be fitting for us. Too bad we couldn't be worldwide the same thing, but you know, that's the way it goes.
Lawrence?
Yeah, so my understanding is the first J1772 chargers use a resistor in the cable, but the newer ones use a pulse width modulation conversation between the car and the charger. And so that can be controlled, since it's not in the hardware, that can be controlled from the lamppost charger, over the cable, just through the wire.
Yeah, but the problem, what John's trying to point out is this, the reason for not having the separate cable is that since we do that, and that isn't how we do it, that the cable is connected to the charger, because the charger now knows my cable is this thick.
Yeah.
But you're right, the J1772 we have over here does do a communication like that with a square wave, the pulse width, and that's how we tell about the amount of current.
It seems to me all we need to do is get the state to make a rule, because, you know, we make all kinds of rules and everybody follows them.
Just that?
We're big enough, 40 million people, you know.
Is Woody here? Where's Woody?
I know, right?
What he said, he left. I
don't know
thought I
if he
saw
was.
him pop up before.
The IRA at least requires CCS, right, for all the
Yeah.
stations, right? So at least we're approaching unifying
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
DC
there are some standards.
connector.
Well, of course,
Which
Tesla's
way
a
ahead.
lot better than CCS, but
Pardon?
Yeah, but even Tesla now has a contract with the government to be converting all of the Tesla stations so that they actually know how to do J1772. They already know how to do J1772, but they now will be able to do the DC portion as well. And they opened a factory in Buffalo to start making new stations that support both the Tesla connection and the CCS connection for DC.
they're going the wrong way, though. I mean, Tesla's got such a nice little connector.
Do you want to talk to Sony? Do you want to talk to Sony about
This
this?
big.
Are there any incentives?
You still using
for
beta?
businesses, either with respect to charging stations or with respect to used electric vehicles?
So the nonprofit pilot for workplace charging is what we have right now available. I can follow up with you separately and see if I can pick Brand's brain a little bit and what he knows is available. We certainly don't, like a SCP customer that's a business certainly has access to an EV charger, but we know that that is just part of the expense of adding in, potential infrastructure to install.
Yeah, because I'm not sure what the percentages would be, but my assumption would be that most of the businesses that have a Sonoma Clean Power account are not necessarily the property owners of that location.
Yes,
Okay.
it's definitely an issue. We did, so the Cali VIP program, I know that there were EV chart, it's fully subscribed, so I don't want to float that as a opportunity, but we did, like I had mentioned, install some remote Mendocino County EV charging stations. So there were resources, and we always look at, will things be refunded, and how do we, determine feasibility for extending a program. So I don't know exactly how EVIP is intended. I can circle back.
Okay.
Is that okay?
The other thing that I've been interested in for a long time, I took the course at the JC to become a used auto wholesaler, although I didn't get my license.
No.
There isn't any dealership that I don't think anyone has ever heard of in the North Bay that specializes in used electric vehicles. With the Inflation Reduction Act starting January 1st of 2024, there's going to be that $4,000 tax credit available to used EVs, but only those that are bought at dealerships. And, all the EVs, well, I mean, I don't know. There's other considerations. I mean,
Brad, I heard of a way that the dealerships were going to try to support private party transactions, where the dealers were going to offer the ability to conduct the transaction on behalf of private parties for like a $500 fee.
like an intermediary.
And it didn't have enough detail. So I was like, wow, that, I don't know if it's happening locally in our area, or if any of the dealerships in our area are quite familiar with this, or if it was just anecdotally occurring in a couple of other dealerships, but
that's good information. I hadn't
we
heard of
could
that
ask
either.
around.
Yeah.
The heck with that. Let's just contact Brant and say, Brant, why don't you start another program and become a dealer? And come into the energy center, and the energy center will take care of it for you.
Doesn't Redwood Credit Union have a car purchasing program?
And
Yeah,
that's
they handle
true.
some of that, and they would be more the kind of group. that
Redwood
would
Credit
maybe-
Union might be a really good choice.
Oh, that's a good thought.
Yeah.
I like that thinking for
Although
sure.
they don't specialize in electric vehicles.
No, but I could see them being interested in that kind of.
Yeah, being kind of
It's a
a,
community.
And if Sonoma Clean Power approached them and said, hey, this idea.
we are completely willing to approach everybody. So like Nissan, I got my Nissan Leaf used a couple of years back from Nissan, and I know that they do try and put, get their vehicles back out, so.
From the Jimbo dealership on Santa
Yes.
Rosa. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't get it in the right time frame to take advantage of the incentive, so I don't know exactly how that'll work, but.
The service is awful. You noticed a note from Cecilia here that the credit union did offer a discount rate.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, just as far as other sharing stories or experiences, I mean, a lot of people here have been to dealerships, new vehicle dealerships, and complained about the experience of trying to buy an EV or trying to get information or trying to test drive them. Just because, everything from, there's like one salesperson on the entire lot who actually knows about electric vehicles. So, many people have been here who have shared the experience of knowing more than this salesperson trying to sell them the vehicle. What was it, back in 2019 when Sonoma Clean Power offered the incentives on new vehicles? Was that long?
2017.
Oh, okay.
Was a bit ago.
And the dealerships would just absorb the incentives basically and raise the sticker price.
It's an unfortunate
Dynamic.
truth and dynamic that we are doing things like our incentives that we offer for the technologies that are on the floor. We now have it to the customer, so they don't have to use a Sonoma Clean Power approved contractor, although they can. The 0% on-bill financing is required to be a Sonoma Clean Power approved contractor just because of all the legalese and things of that nature. But the incentives, we're saying, hey, if it's a permitted install of one of these technologies, you just get your quote from your contractor, you get the work done, and then the incentive goes to the homeowner. Because we're trying to it's gotta be tempting for a contractor to take advantage of, oh, we can pad a little here and there. And we don't know that that's happening, but just even the idea that that could be.
Anecdotally, it happens.
Yeah, I mean, it could, so you never know. So I would, yeah, I bet that's a
So
true
when we
story.
hear that someone is buying an electric vehicle for the first time, do we refer them to pick up their charger here? Or like, how does that work if they're interested in the charger or grid savvy program?
So I would recommend that they go on our website and there is actually a link to our web store. And it's a very easy process. And we're, generally it takes a little time, the reimbursement. I believe that our chargers are about a 3-week, depending on supply chain. They're getting better. It's getting less common, but there were some delays in stock. Actually, the end of the year of 2022, it was like that, but it's kind of freed up a little bit. So going on the store, it's a simple checkout process. They can request we do collect vehicle ID numbers because we're looking to collect LCFS credits. It's one of the agreements that they make in getting the discounted EV charger.
Okay, so that was one of my other questions. Do they have to own an EV in order to get a charger?
Technically, no. We request that they reach back out. In the newer iteration of the program, it's still being negotiated whether we'll mandate a vehicle ID number. Right now, it's like you just kind of can plug in to get past that. But we are hoping the LCFS credits don't have as much value as they have in the past right now.
What's that stand for, LCSS?
Low carbon fuel standard credit, I believe. Could have the last word wrong, but I think that's correct.
So for landlords who put a charger in, a unit they're renting, right, that would be a blocker if they had to provide an EV number, because it's gonna be their tenant.
And
Oh, yeah.
I agree. And that's we're always trying to okay, well, how does this impact? Because we're trying to make it more accessible, like affordable housing. I think there might have been a question about, hey, I've got a multifamily project, or I'm a landlord and I have a duplex or a fourplex, and I want to know if I can get EV chargers. We do mandate that they be an SCP customer, so that can be a barrier right there. It makes it a little tricky because if you've got an apartment complex, not having a vehicle ID number, it's one of the questions that we're asking right now. Like, is it worth it enough? Because I think for some people, if they have an EV charger, they're going to consider making a decision that they might not have made. Right? Oh, maybe I should get an EV. I've got a charger here. We don't want to limit those types of decisions, but we also have to kind of balance that.
We have a question online here from Lawrence.
Yeah, so we kind of passed this a while ago, but I wanted to jump in. Is that my understanding is that Tesla can get Inflation Reduction Act money by putting on the converters or the second cord for CCS. And kind of similarly, I saw a Chatamo CCS charger, and on the side of it was a Tesla converter. So it plugged in, basically you plug the Chatamo plug into this box, and now that box came the Tesla cord. So Tesla's had something like, well, not Tesla, but somebody's manufactured this converter that you could buy and travel with you in your Tesla to do Chatamos, but now it's actually on some of the chargers. And similarly, Teslas can do one the other way. And that way they can get all sorts of money from the government, from the IRA, in order to keep their superchargers going. And I don't know.
That charger, and the ones with it built in, it's very slow.
Yeah, and the converter, by the way, is not cheap. Last time I looked at converters, between $3,000 and $5,000 for that converter, compared to just it's more than a wiring harness.
Yeah, the one I used was on PlugShare, I think, and it plugs into their CCS, right? So it's kind of attached there. It's a weird, jury rig contraption, right? And I was getting, it failed to connect multiple times, and then it would alert, but I would get like 25 kilowatt on a DC fast charger. So
Tesla is selling in their store a converter to Chatamo, and they're supposedly working on one for CCS. And the Chatamo one is like $250.
Is that what it's down to? Yeah. Because originally those were extremely expensive. And there were thousands of dollars.
I haven't seen those Chatamo adapters online in a while. I don't know. I didn't know if they were still selling them in the US at least. But the the CCS adapters are available from Tesla, but your car needs to support CCS. And earlier models of the cars do not. So you'll need a retrofit.
I'm waiting for the retrofit.
Me too. Yeah, you can type your, well, you can go on Tesla and check to see if your car is too old to use that
Oh, that's right,
$250
yeah.
adapter.
I keep trying to do the
And
service.
they will retrofit you,
No,
but,
no, because the protocols are different.
yeah, they can retrofit you, but not today.
Yeah.
Sometime
So-
later.
I'm hooked up on the grid savvy and then the Snow Clean Power and that rooftop solar
Nice.
and charging at midnight. Is that my best bet or charge during the day?
So are you on the EV rate?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I believe that the EV rate has specific times and I think
It
it's
runs from midnight to
Midnight.
3 PM, so you get all the daylight.
right.
The new schedules. So
Yeah,
from your point of
stretches
view
it. I
on
knew that there
cost,
was-
your point of view on cost, you charge starting at midnight. From the point of view of a valuable citizen, wait till 7 o'clock in the morning.
Or
Right.
8.
Okay, because you want to
Right,
start,
when the sun
in fact,
comes
the
up.
chargers here at Sonoma Clean Power, Jeff had them put at almost every parking space, but they don't turn on until the grid is clean. And so he waits till there's
11.
enough solar, and then he starts charging all of the employees' cars.
It's 11 to 4, I think is what the window is, because that's when the sun is.
So if you can afford to
doing its
charge
best work.
later in the day and you're not going someplace, then
It's
wait till
best.
later in the day. And
Yeah.
I've got to change the timing on my car too. I've got to set to charge at night because I figure I'm done at the end of the day and I may want to go someplace in the morning. So
Yeah,
if you don't have that strategy and then you walk up to the car and it's discharged, your wife yells at you.
yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be the right schedule based on the tariffs, right?
Well, it was the right,
Right.
it still is the right schedule based on the tariffs, because the tariffs don't match what the grid needs today. I did a little research on this too. Why were the tariffs like this in the first place? And it turns out it has to do with nuclear. And when we had many nuclear plants in California and the basic backbone of California's electricity came from nuclear, they needed to get rid of the energy because they didn't have any demand at midnight and they were selling it outside the state. And in many cases had to pay for states to take it outside the states.
Right.
Because you can't just crank down a nuclear plant in 10 minutes.
Right.
Okay, and so
No, it's like-
that's how they did it. And so the tariffs are, as Jeff will say, the tariffs that we have today, the future tariffs that we have today are addressing the problems we had 5 years ago. He said, we really need future tariffs that address the problems that we'll have 5 years from now.
Right.
John?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I was curious if anybody knows of a system that would in your own residence be designed to have zero or attempt to get zero grid usage. Still be hooked up to the grid, but allow battery and solar to work together so that you're not pumping into or taking it from the grid at all in your home. I know of some people through my work that are doing this on their own with their own technology, but I'm just curious, we talk about, vehicle to grid and stuff, but what about, vehicle battery to home and minimizing the grid use whatsoever? That's just kind of my thought.
John, again, this is from experience. I was wondering why my battery system, my Sonnen system, works differently than the Tesla system. And I discounted a number of electricians who told me when they installed the system that the amount of power I could have in my house would be limited. I said, well, wait a second, you mean when it's on the battery? They said, no, it's limited all the time. And it turns out in the Tesla system, all the power actually runs through the battery and the battery powers everything that it's supposed to in the house all the time. And it gets discharged and charged all the time from the grid or from your solar. So essentially, my friend Kenneth's system, the battery discharges all day long and tries not to use the grid all the time. In my Sonnen system, I tell it your discharge period is here when the peak charge period is, when the expensive time is, so from 4 o'clock until midnight. And you're not allowed to discharge from midnight until 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I want you to crank up how fast you get power from the grid. That is, you're allowed to get grid at this rate if you can't get enough off the solar panels. In order to be fully charged, by 4 o'clock. So the difference between those, the Tesla system will do essentially what you're talking about. As long as the battery system and the sources of electricity that you have on your side of the meter satisfy the need that you have, it will supplement. It won't push back to the grid at all. And so consequently, your non-bypassable charges look a lot smaller. And that might explain the difference between, I don't know if Tora, if you're still there, whether the system you have, do you have Tesla batteries or something like that? How did you get such a small non-bypassable or true up? Is he still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a little bit afternoon, and so I wanted to check in with everyone to see if anyone has any additional questions for Kim online. Those of us who are here on site probably can grab her as we wrap up. I know you're kind of a captive audience.
Thanks so
here.
much, you guys. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm learning tons too. You guys clearly have a
No,
lot to
thanks for your
share.
time. It's really helpful to understand and to also understand the breadth of the program
Yeah.
as it's going forward. That's
We're
exciting.
working on it. What we are thinking is that, just to kind of wrap up and put a point on it, EV chargers are an interesting part of the, what we perceive moving forward. They're not exactly perfect for demand response because like you alluded, but we are looking at ways to try and pull them in and understand that permanent load shifting out of that window is really important. So I think the first step is, and grid savvy as a kind of entry point. Hey, when you use energy, you'd be surprised. We're at this table where we have kind of an understanding about what it means to look at a peak demand and time of use. A lot of folks aren't thinking with that lens. So we're using grid savvy rewards with EV chargers in particular to kind of get them thinking along that vein. So it's been great. Thanks so much. I hope I had at least something worth listening to.
Yeah, thank you for letting us meet.
I had a question. Did we get nuked? I can't hear.
We're still there. Thank you.
Good. Yes, I had a question about Sonoma Clean Power's possible role in helping people understand the bill we received from PG&E.
Wait, wrong person. Sean.
I can
Oh,
help
can
a
you?
little bit. I can help a little bit. So
Okay.
finish your question. Let me see what I can do because I have to answer this once in a while. This will be good practice for me.
Yeah, I don't want to ask you a specific question because I've called and basically SCP says, no, we can't really help. But I wondered if that would be something that someone on staff could get familiar with so that there could be some help for people.
I just want to let Kimberly know, when we met here the previous time, the presentation that was given, I gave it, was I was so disturbed about my true-up bill.
Oh.
And everybody else around here, turned out I was amazed at the number of people who got amazingly large true-up bills. And I contacted both PG&E and Sonoma Clean Power and didn't get a lot of answers, so I had done an analysis of my own. And Sean was in here and he said, let me see if I can get somebody to do a presentation to talk about tariffs, about true-ups and all of that, and see if we can shed any light on the details. So I just wanted you to know that it's been discussed before.
Okay, so is that what, John, is that what your question was about? Or was it just, oh my gosh, my bill is big? I can do probably, oh my gosh, my bill was big. Because we all know that the cost of commodities is going up, and when the cost of commodities for natural gas goes up, it pulls everything with it. In addition to the fact that natural gas fired power plants, although they aren't part of the picture, but if PG&E, if they're being used to produce some of the power portfolio and natural gas has increased, there is a trickle effect of that and it impacts us all. Is that,
No,
John?
that's really good to know, but the main problem is for years and years, I've tried to understand the bill. And then when I heard Jerry talk about it, and Jerry and I are both kind of on the engineering end of things, so we should be able to understand this. And if we can't, then nobody can, or very few people.
Me included, yeah.
It's almost as though somebody doesn't want anyone to understand it. And it's scary because then we are not able to know what we're doing. We can't make changes. We can't verify our bill. So that's the question, really.
And I'll tie one example into that from what I remember from Jerry's presentation last time was that, and I don't remember how much of the bill was attributable to this, but you had as your heat source listed a non-electric heat source, and you had an electric heat source, and it had been months since it was installed.
Well, it turns out for the tariff that I have, EV2A, it has to do with the baseline rate allowed. Okay, in EV2A, there is no baseline. But if you went to the ETOUC, there is a baseline, and the baseline changes in the winter if you're a gas user versus an electric user. And I wanted my change, even though I'm still EV2A. And when I did the analysis, I made the assumption that if I went to ETOUC, that I would have a baseline that would be an all-electric baseline. And what I found out was in that analysis that making the switch, I would save a little bit of money, but like $30 a year, you know.
But if you had 2 meters, I mean, then you could have 1 meter with the EV2A and 1 meter with the TOUC.
But that's just way too complicated for most people.
You know, I never thought about doing that, and I don't think I don't think I would want to do it, to be honest.
They used to have a different rate for that. If you had a second meter, it wasn't the 2A, it was a B.
Right, you changed it. It used to be
It's
an
a
A and
different,
B.
but it throws you, it's yet another tariff you'll have to.
Yeah, it was complicated enough to do that, and then also to calculate non-bypassable. In order to do that, I couldn't use any data from the utility. I had to actually take data off the battery because I had to get it minute by minute in order to figure out the flow of the electrons to net out the non-bypassable. I don't know how they do it.
Yes.
Even the simple parts of the bill, it just is over complicated, and partly, you know, now it's Sonoma Clean Power and PG&E. So I just, if there's anybody there that you know of and could share with our group, someone we could talk to, or if someone, I just can't believe that that's not a need out there for.
It would be a great presentation for the club. We would love to have one.
Absolutely. Will you, so we have a kind of a new method. I want to make sure you get the right person. And
Yeah.
I'll start working on drilling to find out who that is and see what I can do to move that along. There's also on our website, if you have a request for a presentation, this is the perfect one to go through that channel, because then we can really make sure that you get the talent, you know, the right person with the right answers around that topic. I would fumble around and not give you good, solid information.
Yeah, we're happy to do that. When we talked with Sean about it, I think we talked about how it didn't necessarily have anything to do with our NBEAA meetings. It might be a separate webinar that would be great complementary information that, you know, would be more general.
It wouldn't hurt to have it.
organization.
Yeah,
Could
and
be the
it's
10th
super
presentation.
useful because we
To have
do
here.
get these questions, and
Yeah.
if it's complicated for the people in this room, then you're right. You're absolutely right, John. It's complicated for everyone.
The reason that it clues to us more than a lot of other groups, and I don't know if Andy's even still here, since I joined the North Bay, a lot of the presentations have been on how we use electricity. How do I get rid of the use of gas? How to get rid of natural gas?
Right.
Heat pumps for discussion. I got my solar panels as a result of a number of members here, what company they worked at and what their experience was. We're electric users. The fact that we have electric cars, we're electric users. And so central focus for us is electricity.
Right, understood.
Well, I'm gonna bring the formal part of the meeting to a close because we're at 12:15 now. Our next meeting is gonna be February 11th, second Saturday of the month. We'll seek approval and follow the process, but have an intention of being right here at the Advanced Energy Center again.
And